brother. Go ahead and give us the 3, 2, 1 count and let us know.
All right, then. 3, 2, 1. All right, y'all. We locked in off the cuff radio. I'm your host, King Eric, the Media Assassin, and we're gonna come with y'all with an exclusive interview, courtesy of a Thursday night exclusive that we have going on. This show is sponsored by Screwball Radio, Buddy Boy Entertainment, Da Vinci Clothing. Got my host T Max with the facts on the line.
What it do, y'all? Another tremendous Thursday on that outstanding frequency of OTC. Shout out to our co-host, Sincere, a lot of fan man, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, DJ Sincere, Dirty Basement Radio. We are so blessed to have you with us. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the most phenomenal, anointed, and awesome orchestrators of all things inspirational and instrumentals and so much more. This man is the epitome of showing that God's grace is infinite, it is incredible, and most importantly, impactful and indelible. He has a story that is full of ups and downs, adversity and obstacles, but also overcoming, evolving, and most importantly, achieving through his grace. He is, of course, with other producers, producing, of course, on Snoop's new gospel album. If you have not picked it up yet, you need to check it out. It is all things uplifting and holy. And we are here with him tonight for him to tell his incredible story of his path to prosperity and still perpetually pushing on. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the one, the only, fantastic orchestrator himself, FLINTSTONE. What's going on, man?
Man, that was an amazing introduction there, man. I feel real humbled.
Yes, sir.
Ooh, I better live up to that name, you know. I appreciate y'all. Shoot, I gotta put y'all in my pocket. You know, take you guys everywhere I go.
Hey, we're speaking for hire, man. You know where to go. We'll be there.
I hear you, brother. I hear you, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
So thank you so much for coming on. We talked off there in the pre-convo. Your story is filled with an incredible amount of resolve and, determination. Obviously, your work is absolutely incredible on the new album.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, I mean, it's definitely the epitome of what it means to be uplifted in God's word and name and to find joy, serenity, sanctity, and most importantly, solid. We got some time. Let's get to it. Tell everybody about yourself.
My name's FLINTSTONE, of course. I'm a music producer. I was an artist first. Harvey Mason Jr. was the person I came through as an artist at first, and then later on when he did started the Underdogs, I was a producer. So I honed my skills as a producer. Got some places with him and the crew, and worked with Olivia. Who else? Kavon Edmonds. A slew of people, man. I'm trying to think down the line. RL from Next. A lot of people, man. I got to work with a lot of great people with him, and then after that, I was able to go with a different camp, also with Warren Campbell, and I produced records for Mary, Kelly Price, Michelle Williams, The Destiny's Child, and I forget who else. There's a lot of people, man, that we all work together with, and then I worked with Soul Shock and Carlin, and that's how I met my wife, Lisa, which is my partner, has been my partner for the last 20 plus years, and she writes pretty much everything that we do together, and we do everything together. We produce, we write, we sing, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's just been a beautiful, beautiful situation for the past few years. We've done a lot of TV and film in between the time also, which I think a lot of people are getting into these days as well. And I think it's just a great lucrative path when it comes to that. A lot of people don't know that, you know what I mean? Especially coming up around the time where a lot of people just chasing the records or whatever. We were still, getting that TV and film money as well. So it's just been a blessing, man. I can't complain at all.
Absolutely. I mean, you and your wife, shout out to Ms. Lisa as well. Okay, y'all got that out.
Yeah, Lisa's she's the secret weapon. She's a secret weapon. And I want to say shout out to my buddy Vern V Love. He's the one that helped me get into with Vern. I mean, with Harvey, and we were able to all work together in the beginning. So that was pretty cool. So I had to get a shout out to my buddy there. But yeah, she's my secret weapon. She's a secret weapon to a lot of people. So,
hey, I mean, and the funny thing about it, Flint, is that because I'm thinking of your mentor. When you think about it, Flint, your beginning in this journey as an artist is like so many. You have aspirations, you have goals. You come in the game with a vision in terms of what you're trying to execute. What was coming into the game? What was it like in terms of being a novice, a new artist, in terms of negotiating contracts, understanding what the label was asking of you, and so many other elements that ultimately was, transitioning you to where you're at now?
Well, it's kind of interesting because at the time I was 16. Of course, everybody that comes in the game is real green. But, I've always been the kind of person that likes to crawl before, I don't like things to happen for me quickly, unless God wants it to, of course. But it's been one of those, those situations where it's like I've been able to see like a lot of details of the music industry, going through whatever situations that I've gone through has helped me to understand who I am as a businessman, who I am as a producer, and as an artist as well. Wearing so many hats sometimes could kind of cloud your vision a little bit because you do so many things. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the sky's the limit. So you kind of have to hone on one thing and then kind of move to the next thing, and then so on and so forth. So for me, God has been the driving force in everything that I do. So I'm always consulting Him before I do anything. So, yeah, and my wife after that. So,
hey, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Man, God said, man, who find a good woman, find us a good thing.
Amen to that. That's right. Yes, sir.
When you talk about 16 years old, and we think about so many artists that came in. We think about Usher. He was around 14 when he came in. We look at the Jackson 5. Michael Jackson was 6, 7 years old when he started, coming in. Shout to Crooked Eye out of Long Beach, 144 House. He was 17 when he signed his deal to Virgin Records. And
wow, that's amazing.
Others. Yeah. I mean, so this game is something that coming in, especially for a young person, is a lot, especially when you're looking at dealing with celebrity interactions. You're looking at it being a job, and the fact that you're still young and trying to process all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
What was it like from just seeing things from an aspect of how you were navigating this in terms of really being on a schedule, knowing that this is, after pretty much everything of the pageantry of what goes along with, the notoriety of being an artist, the work that comes behind it, and the processes of it?
Man, that's a good question. It's one of those type of situations for me. Actually, it was like a fall in line kind of a thing because I hail from Tucson, Arizona, so there's not a lot of opportunities out there as far as when it comes to the music industry, but the talent is huge too out there where we live. So for me, I took the opportunity and I literally grabbed, the horns, the bull by its horns or whatever. So I just kind of just fell into it, you know what I mean? And Yes, I guess I could say that sometimes it was a little nerve-wracking because you're meeting so many executives. You know what I mean? I could remember, like, I met so many people in a short amount of time. I mean, it was, when I tell you it was like Tupac, it was, Andre Harrell, it was Devontae from Jodeci. It was like so many people that I met within that time frame or whatever. I was just kind of trying to process everything. And at one point I believe we had like a bidding war, you know what I'm saying, with the labels and stuff, and we ultimately chose MCA Records, which was kind of cool. But yeah, man, so it's definitely, if I were to give myself advice, I would say, hey man, you need to pace yourself just a little bit and just kind of take it easy because it gets a little crazy.
Well, when you said MCA, that's what I figured when you mentioned Andre Harrell, rest in peace, and of course Devontae from Jodeci.
Yeah, those are my influences. Those are definitely my influences, man.
Yeah, that had to be around the time where was that around the time where Uptown was really getting that boom?
Yeah, Uptown was definitely doing their thing. It was kind of cool because we had our choice to choose a label at that point, and we chose to go with MCA. Hank Shocklee was there at the time. God bless him, man. Shout out to him. And he saw the vision, and we took it from there. But yeah, man, it was a trip. It was popping, and the reason why I believe we kind of chose them is because Uptown was over there. All the cool artists were there. So yeah, man, it was really, really nice.
Now, obviously, off the cuff, we pride ourselves more than anything on pretty much keeping it academic. And obviously, with what's going on with Puffy right now at his trial, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about your time in terms of Uptown, because obviously Puff was the intern there when Andre was there. And before we get to that element of where, in terms of course, meeting him because he was an intern and just watching how he was working and then how, y'all may have interacted. How did you come about? What was now you're coming along at a time point where this is before social media, obviously. So this is a situation where artists are getting in strictly off of the merits of talent. How did you get on the radar to where you would initially get signed?
Well, before I answer that question, just to make it clear, Andre Harrell was one of the people that I met around the time, but MCA wanted to sign us directly. And so I was dealing with them. Madeline Randolph was my A&R at the time, so I never dealt with him in that way, but I met Andre Harrell. I met a slew of people around that time, so that's what I meant by that. But
sure.
At the time, it's kind of interesting. So a lot of people don't know that I'm mixed heritage, so I'm mixed with Mexican and black and a bunch of other things, but that's how I was raised. But when people used to see me, they used to see me as, who's that Mexican guy singing soulful music? So they never knew what my background was or whatever. So that was kind of like, a shocker to a lot of people. We're like, man, this dude can sing and he's Mexican. He can sing like that and he's 16 years old. So that was, I think, was an eye opener to a lot of different people because there wasn't a lot of Latins coming up doing R&B music at the time. So that was basically pretty much my.
Okay, you there? You still there?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, see what's going on. Yeah, the only other artist I could think of at that time was Bobby Ross Avila. He's the only other.
Yeah, so he was that artist too, man, and he's an amazing producer as well. Shout out to him.
Yeah. So, what was the process in terms of that? In terms of obviously, doing auditions and everything, and then, ultimately getting your opportunity.
Well, there was a lot of singing. I think back then was more so of a thing of like, you met somebody that was famous on the street, you just start singing. You don't even explain. It was more so of like, at the time, you're going to laugh at this, but my name was Cisco. But this was before, Drew Hill came out. So I was going by the name of Cisco, but so yeah, man. So it was kind of interesting. it would be one of those situations where, you know, it'd be like, this is such and such, Cisco sing, and I'll just sing right off the bat, like, boom, here you go. And so the auditions were very fast, to be honest with you. You know, nerve-wracking too at the same time, but we got through it. So that's how we had to do it back then. People just, you know, you just have to just sing so they could hear you, because they only have a certain amount of time in order for them to, like, listen to you or whatever, because they're always busy, or they may not even want to, you know, mess with you or deal with you because they're doing something at the time. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, it was crazy.
What was the state of R&B during that time, Flint, in terms of what you felt and how you saw it? Because the 90s, man, we could sit here for the next 2 hours and talk about all the groups that came.
For real, man.
I mean, Joe.
That's the best era, in my opinion.
That's the apex of
I tell everybody, just like hip-hop, and just like gangster rap and heavy metal music, you will never see another era in the 90s of R&B like it was back then.
And they try to try to create it. They try to recreate it, but you can't. I mean, you gotta have the key components in place, cause that's what resonates that energy right there. Like, you could try to recreate it, but you can't. You can't duplicate what's already been done.
No, not at all. And it's crazy because the way that I saw it around that time was, it was creative. It was a time where if anything were to come out, it was just different. You know what I mean? You want to hear what was coming out. You know, it was so many different things. That's what was my favorite era, because, you know, you had the Chucky Thompsons, you had, of course, Devontae, you had the Albie Shores. Yeah, you know, you had all those great producers making amazing music. It was kind of like, man, you know, you kind of just, you know, I kind of chose my way. You know, it was either Boyz II Men or Jodeci is what I wanted to sound like. I kind of had, like, both. I was teeter-tottering both or whatever, so I would listen to both. But, like, ultimately I chose Jodeci, man, even though they're both great. But my style and all of that, I was like, man, it'd be dope if I could do some stuff like that. So that's how I was singing, like, back then. So it was just crazy, man. Good time, though. Good time. Innovative. That's what I could say.
Who are your influences coming in?
Ooh, it's kind of a weird influence. Of course, Chucky Thompson was a big one. Devontae at the time. I would listen to a lot of Steely Dan, Fleetwood Mac.
Great influences. Shout out to Stevie Nicks, of course, Christina.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, those are my influences. I have a lot of influences, man. But I used to listen to a lot of Daryl Coley, you know, as far as gospel, Commission, you know, all of those, man. Those are basically pretty much my influences. But as far as production-wise, yeah, it was like definitely Chucky Thompson and Devontae Swing.
Man, when you mentioned Chucky Thompson and Devontae Swing, I mean, we're old enough to remember when, of course, Jodeci first came out and what they were doing. This album was classic, but that second album of, you know, Diary of a Mad Band, released in 1995, was just insane.
Man.
And then 96, when they dropped the show The After Party in the Hotel, I mean, they, and Chucky Thompson, rest in peace, DC legend. Shout out to our girl, Lisette TT, who was good friends with him.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I tell anybody, if you want to hear the apex of Chucky's talent, go and listen to Faith Evans' debut album.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did on Come Over Alone was like, that Oregon run was just, oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. And what he did with Mary, what he did with Usher. A lot of people don't realize Usher's first album was probably one of the dopest albums that anybody has heard, man.
And we ain't talking about we ain't talking about the one. We're not talking about the one before My Way. I mean, we talk about the one before My Way. Everybody think that My Way is his debut.
The one released in 1994, his very first album.
Yep, when that single came out, Can You Get With It?
That was the lead single, yeah.
Yep. Amazing album. Yeah, he did some pretty amazing, he has a great body of work, man. I remember he used to have an artist named I think Frankie. I want to say. I think it was back. I think his name was Frankie. But he did some amazing stuff with him too, man. But that's what I was chasing. I was chasing like people that were doing different sound of music, like just a different style of music, man. You know what I mean? So, you know, and then come to find out that Timbaland was behind a lot of the stuff too when it came to the Devontae stuff, which was kind of cool because it's like, you know, he was raising a team of people that were doing different stuff, man, and they're super talented in their own right. So, yeah, man, it's crazy.
You mentioned Timbaland. Shout out to Virginia Beach, of course, Hampton Roads, Seven Cities, where I reside.
Yes,
Timbaland, when we look at what they were doing at that time, shout out to, and a lot of people don't know this unless you're from here, there was a group called Sister. Got a song called Brand New.
Brand New was
Remember them.
I'm gonna send you a picture after the show, and you're gonna bug out when you see it.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I'm gonna tag you in it because it's on my IG. I'm gonna tag you in it.
Okay.
But then there was the song called Brand New, and it was a remix that I believe that Devontae did. And through all that talent of the girls, there was one in particular who nobody really paid attention to, but low key was the heartbeat of it. And you know where I'm going with this. And her name was Melissa Elliott.
Oh yeah.
And y'all know today is Missy Elliott, straight out of Portsmouth.
Genius.
And nobody paid attention because she was a dark-skinned big girl, but that dark-skinned big girl was the one who really had, like, whose talent was like...
She was the shining light of the group.
Right.
And was a pretty savvy businessman. From what I understand, if I got my story right, she signed her deal with MCA for her Gold Mine label back in 1996, I believe, because her debut came out, I believe, in 97.
Yeah.
But she signed her debut. She negotiated her own deal for $5 million, from what I understand.
That's awesome. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
What was artist development like at that time, in terms of how they took the time once they got artists signed to get them in a place of how they were, how the label felt like, well, not felt, but how the label groomed them and polished them to be ready for presentation to the public?
It was kind of interesting because you had your artists that would be able to just fall in line. Like, I think I was one of those type of artists. And you just kind of got it. You know what I mean? Of course, there's a little bit of grooming here and there. But then you have the artists that really need that artist development, you know, to just kind of be in place. Because a lot, you know, there's some artists that can't sing. You know what I mean? And they have to kind of get into the mode of that and have that development. But I don't know. I believe a lot of artists that were being signed at the time, the real good artists, even talking about the Brandies and, you know, people like that, they just kind of fell in line. It wasn't really that much of a development type situation. You know what I mean? And that's just my point of view, you know. But, yeah, if you're good, I mean, I think most people are people that have talent kind of get it. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to fall in line, you know. But, yeah, that's how I see it.
So it's crazy, though, y'all, because when we think about it, King and Flint, we look at all the artists that came during that time. And this is roughly a rundown from 1990 to 1996. And this is just a short list. R. Kelly and Public Announcement. Nut and Night. Of course, even with R. Kelly, we're just talking strictly music here. We're talking about Men of Vision, Nut and Night, TLC, Aaliyah, Monica, the group Drama, who had that song Not Today, Image, where had a song called The Choice Is Yours. That was their lead single. Black Girl, Blackstreet, who else? Total. In Vogue.
It was just
I mean, you talk
and everybody sounded different.
4 leads in.
Yeah, amazing.
I mean, it's. I mean, Boys to Men. I mean, who else? UNV, Universal Nubian Voices. Intro. Rest in peace, Kenny Green.
Man, Intro.
I mean, the list goes on. Shy. I mean,
Guy. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
yep.
dude.
Mint condition. I mean, the list goes on.
H-Town.
H-Town. Yep. We can't remember H. Yep.
You know, and when you think about it, even if some of the groups like TLC that were not, or Total, that were not necessarily powerhouse vocalists in the traditional sense, their swag was mean as hell, though. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
man.
I mean, they brought an attitude, they brought a swag. It didn't necessarily have to mean singing, singing it all crazy, but it's just their style fit them for what was going on, and everybody enjoyed it.
Yep. That's, man. Whew. That's some great names that you named there. Absolutely, man.
And we can still name more. I mean, but man.
Right.
So as you progressed into the game, what was it like in terms of you really seeing this, and then kind of also seeing the ups and downs of the industry in terms of, having a project that's slated, then there becomes what they call, in the same terminology as in motion pictures, developmental hell, where there is, they're trying to get it off the ground, but sometimes it just doesn't connect like the label wants it to, and then worse, they don't know what to do.
It's funny because like I'm basically like independent right now because I'm very much so about independent and all of that, and I'm just seeing back and understanding how labels would move and all of that stuff. For whatever reason they had, they would show certain people, and it just is what it is. I would see that a lot, and then my brain would start going into this thing of like, okay, I gotta secure my position and try to think about other ways of making money or honing my talent. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so that's where that whole TV and film situation, came through. And I just did that as I was like, becoming a producer at the time. Because I would do a lot of production, with my TV and film situations and singing on top of them also. So that really helped me. Like, it was kind of like, whoa, hey, no.
Tell us about the transition when you started getting those that work for it, please.
Well, it's funny because the transition was pretty easy. Like the transition, I would go through a publisher at the time. They'd give us the briefs. They'd say, hey, man, we need a song like this, but we can't do it exactly like it. You know what I mean? And, of course, for copyright, reasons or whatever.
They interpolate in terms of the melody, but changing the notes around in the melody.
Exactly. So that right there told me, like, and it's funny because when you do TV and film, you get to learn how to, basically write hits, write an actual song, because most of that stuff that's commercial, like, those are actual hits. People don't realize, like, when you write a commercial song, is gonna do something, man, and it's gonna help you write, hits for your artist or whoever it is that you're working with. You know what I mean? So TV and film used to get like a bad rap at some point. Like, man, I don't want a TV and film type song or whatever. But later on, like around this time, a lot of those songs become hits. A lot of that TV and film stuff becomes hits, man. People be surprised, man. It gets landed in a TV show or something like that, and then here we go. So yeah.
And finding that out in terms of it, when you speak on trying to finding those other hustles up, right? When you're talking about the publishing, how important is it for artists to make sure that their publishing is secured, that they know they're signing in contracts, and to make sure that everything is according as it should be?
That's the most important part of anything. That's something that I learned along the way, of course. A lot of people don't know that even till this day. You got to get yourself signed up with BMI ASCAP or PRO. That's very, very important. Sign up as a writer. And there's another part of it, sign up as a publisher as well. So That's very important. That's something that should be 101 on everybody's list when becoming even an artist too, because artists come up with melodies also. But as a songwriter, producer, those are the two things that needs to be done first and foremost. So, and copyrights and all of that good stuff. So, yeah, it was very important for me. So, because you won't get paid if you don't do it.
Absolutely.
That's real.
What were some of the shows that you ended up working on in terms of writing music for?
Oh my gosh. So
we got time.
I have over 1,000 placements in TV and film. So I was on. I had some on The Simpsons. Had music on Oprah Show, Friday Night Lights, The Kardashians. I mean, anything that you could think of that's out there that's a show. I'm pretty sure that I've had my music on. My most proud is Girlfriends, just because I like the show, because it's just a beautiful show. I love that show. But yeah, I've had my music played on everything. NBA, CBS, all of that stuff, man.
Now, you mentioned Girlfriends. Did Kelsey Grammer end up approaching you about doing that, or was it another one of his producers that did?
No, it's actually like sometimes, so these companies will go to like a library house or whatever, and they'll, find whatever music that they like or whatever, especially when they have, relationships. So that's how I was able to get in, just through a publisher.
Gotcha.
Yeah, especially the way the game is now, where all these TV shows are now on these syndicate streaming platforms.
Say it again, I'm sorry. You're breaking up.
Yeah, I was saying that it's very important now to get the paperwork done because of how the game changed to where now all these TV shows are now on these syndicate platforms. They're now on these streaming sites. So
yeah,
you got to really fight tooth and nail to get that money now.
Yeah, and it's funny because I do see, it's funny you said that. Even though it's ended up on a show, like you said, they still put it out on Spotify or any of those streaming platforms. And I see money coming from, Spotify and all of that. So, and this is stuff that I've done like years ago. So I think they kind of got wind of like, man, we could make money off of putting on streaming platforms too. Let's go ahead and do that as well. So, I thought that was kind of cool because it helps the writer get more money as well. You know what I mean? And, they're going to want to make money too. So it's in their best interest to do it.
Absolutely. So pretty much you're doing this. When you started getting those calls for doing all of these songs, how did that feel of knowing that not only your work was appreciated, but it was appreciated and people wanted more of it?
Man, it felt good, man. Especially when you're doing the job and they like exactly what it is that they were asking for. It's just an achievement. You know what I mean? Especially when my partner, my wife, when she got with me, man, we were just flying through songs. We could finish songs in a matter of 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So the process is a lot faster. Especially when you have a like-minded person, with you to get these songs done. But yeah, it felt good. To be honest with you, it felt really good.
Definitely. You spoke on independence, Flint. We're in an age now of music where artists don't necessarily need a label anymore like they once did. And obviously with technological advances, it facilitates a more easier means of being able to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see that a lot of artists aren't as good at it as they think they are.
Right.
And this is what begins to kind of sabotage their own efforts finding their way. Although you may be able to do it yourself, Flint, what do artists today coming in need to understand about how this business works in terms of getting their music out, having their music right for presentation, and most importantly, how to make themselves last in this industry?
Well, I would say the most important thing would be consistency. And as you can see, a lot of the independent artists, you know, they post every single day. They might post 3, 4, 5 times in a day. And yes, you have followers that are actually following you, but there's still the other 7 billion people that haven't heard your stuff at all. So, you know, my thing is like, stay consistent. Keep posting. Keep, you know, in this day and age, you have to keep that momentum going, so you won't get lost in the whole situation, you know. But it's very, very important to stay consistent. I'm trying to remember the other part of the question that you asked.
In terms of, well, the main thing you said, in terms of just understanding coming in terms of the music itself, because one thing about it back in the day, when we came up in terms of especially with rap, you didn't get on the microphone rapping if you weren't good at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this was something that was taken very, very seriously. It was a very sacred art. The art of rhyme was something that articulated, you were not only representing yourself, but you were representing where you came from.
Yep.
You obviously had to make sure that you were representing your home right. And I think people had more of a sense of humility, understanding that if they weren't ready, they were not ready. A shout out to an interview we did with Uncle Richie Rich from Oakland, the OG. And he was talking about back in the day, like coming from the town, like OGs won't let you in the studio until they knew you were ready.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's real, man. You gotta come with it.
Yeah, they were like, you were not putting out no music in the town until they knew it, especially if they were financing. They were like, guys, you gotta be ready before you actually put on for the town.
Yes, sir. That's real. That's real.
A lot of temptations come in this industry too, in terms of what you will see. That goes without saying. We're not going to get into all of the salaciousness details. Obviously, you're a married man and a happily one at that. Before you met your wife and after you met your wife, how did you navigate and from that level of monogamy and commitment? How did you manage to maintain that?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, first of all, God was always the forefront of that. There's a lot of beautiful women in the industry, as you already know. For me, it wasn't that hard for the simple fact that I was really focused. You know, I come from a one-parent household, so my mother was always, you know, on my mind. I got to get a house for her. I got to get a house for her, you know, or I got to take care of her. I got to take care of her. So I was always about my business, man. You know, I just, and my sister too at the time. Just shout out to my sister. And that was like my driving force was my family. And God, you know what I mean? And to kind of stay. And that's the one part I can honestly say at the time, when I was being groomed to not worry about those type of things. You know, whoever decides to do what they want to do after they make it, then that's their prerogative. But for me, it was just always family. Like, I want to have fun with my family, and I want to have the means to be able to do it. And then most of all, you know, reach people that want to hear a good message, because that's always been my thing. I want to do music that could touch people's hearts and, you know, make them think, you know. But yeah, man, I was always about my business. Always about my business. I didn't let that kind of stuff, you know, bother me. So I love music, so I was a nerd when it came to that.
But I'll tell you one thing about it, though, Flint. Being a nerd keeps you out of trouble, because when we look at it, you know, we look at social media, and we're seeing the debauchery that goes on now.
Yep.
This is what we're seeing online.
It's crazy, man.
So we
open your phone and boom, there it is, you know. But yeah, it's crazy.
We talk. All the shows that we've done over the years, all the people we talked to on air and off air, we've heard stories about what happened in terms of what was going on when there were not cameras around back then.
Right.
So and I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand at times about how crazy it was. I mean, LL dropped his autobiography in 1996, I Make My Own Rules. And LL gives a very raw and unfiltered look in terms of, how he was doing. Like, he admitted to being a big porn fiend. He talked about, in terms of the cars, he's like, all these guys talking about all the cars. He's like, man, I done crashed more cars than they bought. I mean,
that's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, that industry, we've seen it also, and even if we don't know the details, we've seen, rest in peace to Chris Lighty. We saw what happened in Houston. The song they wrote out like that, he poked his own eye out. We've seen artists talk about the burnout that they experience in terms of those flashing lights of fame, which eventually roast them because it becomes too hot in terms of the heat that they're getting with that attention. Yet it's still, Flint, we see so many people today who are literally, I'm going to just say it, embarrassing the hell out of themselves for celebrity.
Yeah.
And don't understand, number one, there are no perfect Christians, but I think a Christian who believes in God at least has that template of righteousness and holiness to where he understands that God is a Savior, he is a Father, he is life, he is Alpha and the Omega. And as long as you have that spiritual base of understanding who you are as a person, and you are removable in it, you're going to be fine. But we even see situations where a lot of people will sacrifice that simply for fame that is fleeting. And then it becomes a lot of fodder because we hear all the Illuminati, devil worship stuff, this, that, and the other.
Weird conspiracy theories.
People, if you're not there, you can't speak on it. But we do know there's some things that go on in terms of, people will do things in order to be famous by any means.
Absolutely. We live in a fallen world, man, and our foundation needs to be strong. And of course, like people like us, we choose the Father, in order to be able to move through these trenches, because we're not all perfect. Everybody has a testimony. Everybody has a journey. And most importantly is that you become to find out that I can't judge nobody. Right. Because guess what? I may fall tomorrow. I may fall in the next second. I may fall next year. You know what I mean? And the next person is always going to judge you. You know what I'm saying? But they don't never see who they are. You know what I'm saying? Inside, it's like, and that's what keeps me from like, I'm cool. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, ain't no telling what that person's going through. You know what I mean? You got to love people for who they are and what they're going through. Some people we keep at a distance, But
hey, look. We see the situation going on right now, and it's like, in terms of, we heard some things prior to.
Right.
And then it's like, but this whole situation now is like, this is kind of a confirmation of what we've been hearing. And then when we heard that stuff back in the day, like, there's a particular guy that you may want to watch.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So yeah, man, you going on. So yeah, you going on to this project here, the Gospel Project. Now, was there any challenges in particular in going into this, and most importantly, making gospel music sound hip to a culture that pretty much glorifies the dark side of things? Were there any challenges to that?
Man, I mean, it's always a challenge. You always want, me personally, man, I've always put myself in a position of wanting to do something different when it came to doing God's music. And luckily, Snoop he's a visionary and he gets it, So when he chose us to do this project, thank you, Charlie Burrell, because Charlie Burrell that's my brother. That's my homeboy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's family right there, man. He's the one that brought us into the whole situation, and we're really, really grateful for him. And and Snoop saw the vision. You know what I mean, for his project and stuff. And he gave us the records that he wanted us to write to, and it was great because it was hip. You know what I mean? It was different. It was hip hop. And all we had to do was write some gospel records to it. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, my wife and I have always thought in a different lane when it came to gospel, because we always used to say, like, man, I wish gospel was a little bit different when it came to putting out certain type of records, to appeal to the masses. Because every record, especially when it comes to gospel, has its what can I say? Has its genre. It's following and its people. And I think with this album, I believe that we achieved that. You know what I mean? Everybody that was a part of it. So yeah, man, I'm just really, really grateful. My wife and I are really, really grateful for that project to come around, and we were able to be a part of that. It's crazy.
Yeah, how long did it take for you to?
He got you. He got Mike and Keys. Shout out to them.
Yeah, Mike and Keys killing it, man. That record that we did together was. Yeah, that joint came out crazy. So yeah, and shout out to DJ Green Lantern too, because we did that as well. Denon Porter, Michael Burrell, Bennett Paysinger, man. They, like all of them, man. They did such an amazing job on the album. Man, there's so many artists on there that killed it. Jane Hancock. There's so many people on there, man. If I missed y'all, I love you guys. So, Kurt Chambers, yeah, there we go. Some more people, I'm sure.
I mean, one thing about it with Uncle Snoop, man, when he put out the call, man, everybody comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Snoop did a gospel album before, and of course, if you go back on I believe it was on. Was it Rippin' Gangsta or Ego Trippin' when he was like, there'll be ups and downs, and that was pretty much gospel inspired. So Uncle Snoop is no stranger to it.
No, man.
And this was pretty much the second gospel theme album that he's done. When he came to y'all, how did that call come up in terms of Snoop calling you about it?
Man, we was at the studio actually. We had been working on some other stuff. For his artists and everything, and Charlie told us about it, and he has some records. Point 5. Shout out to him. We produced a record on there for him. It's called Good Day. Amazing person. Everybody's amazing. The whole team up there is amazing, man. It was just kind of an organic kind of a thing, like. They're like, man, can you do this record? We have these tracks. You want to write to these? And so we just started writing them, and we pretty much had like 1 or 2 songs a day for him. You know what I mean? And then thereafter, he just started, shooting them to us, and that's how that happened.
Okay. And pretty much
super organic.
Gotcha. How long did it take for you all to pretty much start and wrap the project?
I think we knocked that out in like 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, or something like that.
Oh wow! Okay, y'all were fast with it.
Yeah. We went for it. So you tell us to do something, we'll give you 10 or 15 joints, ready to go, man. That's how we work.
Now we've also seen footage from the shows that have been going on in terms of the promotions. What have those shows been like in terms of the performances in support of the album?
It was great, man. It was one live performance, actually. We taped everything in one day, or one night, I should say. And, yeah, man, it was great. It was fun, great experience, It was an amazing turnout. There was over 700 and some people there. I mean, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. So, yeah, I'm really grateful that he was able to, get us to perform up there. So, yeah, man, it was fun. It was definitely fun.
In terms of where you're at right now, Flint, you and your wife, have you all been approached by any labels in terms of pretty much doing the joint venture or anything in that capacity in reference to the, any collaborations in terms of pushing out product?
To be honest with you, we still, it's funny. My wife and I are like little hermits, like, you know what I'm saying? Studio hermits, I should call us. So it's like, we're always working on music. We've had a couple of things happen, but we haven't like really said yay or nay quite yet. We're still waiting as far as that goes, but we're essentially just music producers and songwriters. So the artist thing, when it came back up again, Snoop saw the vision in us also and was like, man, you guys are going to be artists. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool. You know, he believed in us. And so, we're grateful for that. But, yeah.
That's dope, man. Pretty much, and from that end of it, what do artists have to understand? Because everybody comes into this game, Flint, and they think that this is all about, you're going to make music, you're going to get rich, everybody's going to know your name. What do people have to understand about the journey and the ins and outs, ups and downs that you have to endure getting to that top spot?
Well, I'll say for certain people it might be different. They might make it pretty quickly, depending on their situation. I always look at it as like God gave us like a certain journey, so you don't know what could happen. You know what I'm saying? Within that journey, it could be fast or slow. But in terms of my situation and my wife's situation, it's pretty cool because like we were able to see it in detail. How labels are supposed to be ran, or how a production company is supposed to be ran, or how to record vocals, or understanding music equipment or engineering or any of those things. Like, I'm actually grateful that God has put us in a position to know all those things, because it helps us to run our own company and maybe run a company, a label or something like that with like 10 artists or whatever, whatever the case may be. But I like the slow route. If it happens fast, cool. That's even more of a blessing. But the slow route really helps you to understand the music industry, in its whole capacity. So, and you still learn things every single day. It's always changing. There's always something new. Yeah, man. I think the being able to see the details and things is very important. So I would not rush it. If you could learn everything and do your research and really understand on how to put yourself out, or kind of give yourself some time. You know what I'm saying? Give yourself some time to learn, and at the same time be creative. Come up with new things. Different things, musically or whatever. Be different from the other.
And that's important, man, because when we see this now, especially what's going on these artists today, it's less about music more than it is about shenanigans. And everybody thinks that, it's about having a personality is an intrinsic link. And that's something that I think people. And we understand at times that everybody's thing is about trying to do something that separates themselves. In the words of the great Ian Frazier, Kilmister, y'all know him as Lemmy from Motorhead, rest in peace. Mm-hmm. And his quote was, "If you're going to be a fucking rock star, go be one." People don't want to see the guy next door on stage. They want to see a being from another planet.
Yes.
The wisdom of Lemmy was always infinite.
Yeah.
But
that's real.
Right.
Superstar talk.
And the thing is, when you look at the situations where people create this alter ego of a being that it at times is an extension of who they are, and that sometimes a what's the word I'm looking for? Not facsimile, but a fabricated character.
Yeah.
that is for presentation. And sometimes those lines get blurred in terms of who they want to be and who they actually are. And we've seen this. And this is where people get lost in the identity of show business.
Yeah. You got to be you.
Yeah, you got to be yourself.
Yeah,
and
got to be yourself.
And that's what we're seeing so much today, because everybody is just trying to get out there and be as ridiculous as possible, thinking that that's the way. But nobody understands that hard work, dedication, commitment are the elements, and most importantly, having a real talent. Because talent is what's, hard work is getting you through the door. Talent and savvy is what's going to keep you in the room.
That's right. That's right.
And keeping checking your ego at the door.
How you want to furnish it.
And checking your ego at the door.
Check your. Oh my gosh, he just said the key. Man, none of us. The only difference is the next person has either more fame or more money, but we are all equals. Let me just say that. No one's above anybody. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right on that, man. Check the ego at the door.
Without naming any names, because obviously on Off the Cuff Radio, we don't out anybody trying to be an asshole. Was there any artists in particular that you dealt with that you were like, never again?
To be honest with you, I've never got into that type of situation. Never have. I know it's kind of weird to say that, but that's the truth. Never have, man. Myself, no, I'm just kidding. Get out the room, Flintstone. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I've never had that issue. Never had that issue.
That's a good thing, man, because, I mean, we've heard some horror stories about some people. They were just difficult to be around in terms of just, just disrupting the whole studio session. It's like just, and one thing about it is, especially when you're involved in a project, and especially when you're dealing with studio etiquette, shout out to Rap Rat on IG and YouTube. If y'all have not checked out their page, check those guys out. They're absolute geniuses on it. Rap Rat, they had a vignette on their YouTube page. They had a skit talking about studio etiquette.
Right.
And studio etiquette, people have to understand. That's when y'all actually cooking. This is where y'all are putting all your ideas together, and you're actually trying to make it come to life. So there is, like you said, check the ego at the door. Ideally, everybody needs to understand that when we're putting something together, we need everybody to be on the same page of what is going on.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
We don't need nobody in there coming in there trying to act up, talk crazy, and everything else. So that's a blessing that you and your wife not dealt with those type of issues.
Yeah, man.
It's
been a blessing.
Yeah. In terms of the game, who do you want to work with that you have not worked with?
Oh man, that's a good question. Hey, you guys are making me think here. These as far as artist-wise, or just in general?
Anybody.
Man, that's a good question. We're always like writing and producing records that we never get to think of that. Like, man, I would love to work with that person. Man, I'm at to come back to that one.
Okay, so
it'll come in due time.
It is really like, all right, so we're gonna play a name game, and you give the description of them, and I'm just gonna throw a random name. And you tell us, just the first thing that comes to mind. You know how this game works. Chris Brown.
Super talented.
SZA.
Awesome.
He's speechless on SZA. Took him a second.
Yeah, because she has so many layers, man. Dope. I'm gonna say dope.
Okay, what about her?
Amazing.
Let's see. October London.
Super dope.
Latoya
Talented.
Williams.
He's multi-talented. Let me say that.
Latoya Williams.
You said Latoya Williams?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. I mean, obviously, man, and the way you're, in terms of your structures of music, I think you could work with any of those people.
Hey,
You
I